Hi, all of you wonderful scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Dive Magazine podcast, where I break down the latest scuba diving news and things that piqued my interest over the previous week. This week on the podcast, a fisherman in Greece who found the body of a snorkeler caught in his nets and threw them back into the sea has, unsurprisingly, been found guilty of manslaughter. A liveaboard has sunk on the far southern Egyptian Red Sea after its captain appeared to have disregarded severe weather warnings. The death of a UK rebreather diver off the South Devon coast in May was the result of, quote, user error. It was stated at the opening of an inquest. Bill Gavin, who was one of the founding members of the WKPP and its second project director, has passed away, and Florida-based International Training has decided to tidy up its diver training branding by putting its various agencies under a single umbrella, that of SDI, or Scuba Diving International. So yeah, the first news story is the fisherman in Greece has found a body of a snorkeler in his nets and decided to throw the body back into the sea. Has been found guilty of manslaughter. The incident occurred in September 2021 when the unnamed 55-year-old defendant spotted the corpse whilst hauling in his nets in the Pelion region of Greece's Aegean coast. The snorkeler, who was aged 74, had been reported to the authorities as missing the previous day, but instead of passing on the news of his discovery, the fisherman had initially left the scene. That was according to the Coast Guard officers. He had returned later and, finding that the snorkeler was still trapped in his nets, had released the body and just let it float away. It's like, nah, it's not going to be my problem. He told the court that he had been scared and panicked, according to a trial report. The body was later spotted 5 meters from the shore and retrieved by Coast Guard officers. A recreational diver and other volunteers helped. The manslaughter conviction resulted from the snorkeler having been caught in the nets that belonged to the fisherman, although in mitigation he told the court that he had placed 2 buoys above them and that these should have acted as a warning to any water user not to stray into their vicinity. The fisherman was given a 22-month suspended prison sentence. Why wouldn't you just go, oh, hey, here's obviously a dead body. I should call the authorities immediately. Instead of, no, I'm just going to get out of my nets and we will deal with that later. No, that's just a bit weird. Don't do that. A liveaboard has sunk in the far southern Egyptian Red Sea after its captain appears to have disregarded severe weather warnings. The 18 diving guests were able to escape from the boat along with the crew, but most had to abandon their possessions and subsequently spent some 8 hours adrift in small boats. The incident occurred in the early hours of the 24th of October, halfway through a charter trip out to Hamata. The 30-meter Egyptian-owned Seduction, a vessel with 3 upper deck double and 6 lower deck twin cabins, ran both scuba diving and kite surfing trips. That night, most vessels, including liveaboards, were reported to have heeded warnings of stormy weather and high waves and stayed further north in the more sheltered area of Satire Reef. The Seduction, however, had sailed on as far as Elba Reef near the border with Sudan, where the timber-hulled vessel is thought to have sprung a leak. The boat had been chartered for the deep south trip by a group of divers from the Laval Subaqua Club in northwest France. 2 of the only 4 members who managed to save their passports in the sinking returned to France last weekend and spoke about the incident to France Info. Ex-club president Françoise Paillard and assistant treasurer Philippe Gallaudet said that the trip had been arranged at the dive show in January. The group had arrived in Egypt on the 18th of October, and Paillard described their first 4 days as diving as magnificent. Gallaudet said that he'd been dozing at 3 a.m. I'm very much asleep around 3 a.m. When his friend asked if he thought the boat was lying at a strange angle. Quote, I went upstairs to see what was going on. According to the captain, everything was under control. Other guests later said that they had noted the list as early as 2 a.m. Quoting, after half an hour, the boat started to shake very seriously. We started to take out the life jackets, assuming that it was not going to get better, no matter what the captain said. Finally, we did what the captain did not do, which was to get ready to evacuate. By 3:30 a.m., water had been rising in the cabin. Quoting, we were all saved at the last minute. The boat was listing hard and then completely capsized. It was panic. Everyone jumped into the water. All the divers had managed to don life jackets, but few had time to get dressed, retrieve passports, phones, cash, or any other personal property. Hayard commented that the 10 crew had followed the captain's orders, but were, quote, not seasoned sailors. Luckily, the liveaboard carried 2 5-meter ribs, but it seemed there had been time to launch only one of these and one of the 2 lifeboats. Amid the strong waves, continuous bailing out had proved necessary to stay afloat because of the poor weather. The survivors spent 8 hours adrift before a trawler spotted an orange lifeboat cover and was able to bring them aboard and provide them with warm clothing. They were later transferred to a naval patrol vessel that brought them ashore, where they were taken by bus to a hotel in Hurghada, arriving at about 1 o'clock in the morning on the 25th of October. The 14 divers who had lost their passports and belongings were left waiting for the French consulate in Cairo to make the necessary arrangements to allow them to travel, but were warned that this may not happen before the 30th of October. Egypt's Chamber of Diving and Water Sports told us that the unfortunate incident of the Seaduction liveaboard is currently being investigated by the relevant authorities. We have approached the operator of Seaduction for comment, but nothing as of recording. And while you do see some people in the comments talking about, oh yeah, this is why I never go on liveaboards because liveaboards are always sinking and whatnot, and like, well, they're not always sinking. It's big news. It's like sort of plane crashes or whatnot. For the number of vessels that go out, the very few incidents that do occur, it's not statistically dangerous, but still, always pay attention to your exit routes and all that kind of stuff. And should the boat be acting in any weird way, listing to one side or like shaking something unusual, then yeah, definitely like prepare yourself, be ready for an evacuation, and always have those kind of things like your passport to hand, because yeah, what if, and you just want to be able to grab something, have that sort of grab bag that you can take with you that has all of your essentials, just a small dry bag, just have it ready, like near to where you are. So that should something happen, you can just grab it and just avoid a lot of bureaucracy. In other news, the death of a UK rebreather diver off the South Devon coast in May was the result of, quote, user error, as it stated at the opening of an inquest. Neil Barker, who was 72 and a retired quality manager, was originally from Edinburgh but lived with his wife in Chelmsford, Essex, an active member of the Chelmsford Scuba Diving Club. He had since 2022 also been Eastern Regional Coach for the British Sub-Aqua Club. His death was the subject of a brief preliminary review before Senior Coroner Philip Spinney at Exeter's Coroner's Court on the 18th of October, reported by Devon Live. Barker had been diving off the coast near Bigbury-on-Sea, east of Plymouth, on the 31st of May and was seen to surface, but then to sink again and had to be recovered to the dive boat. The RNLI responded to an emergency call and the diver was taken to Plymouth's Derriford Hospital, where he was declared dead. Cause of death was given as drowning, but the coroner stated that with too little diluent gas in his closed-circuit rebreather system to facilitate buoyancy and breathing, Baker's death had resulted from user error. In a statement from BZAC, those who knew Neil will know he was a dedicated family man with a passion for diving. He was a committed BZAC volunteer both for his club and at a national level as regional coach. His presence will be sorely missed. And at the bottom of the article, there's just a note from the editor. This story has been amended to make clear that whilst the inquest has opened with a preliminary statement of cause, the coroner has yet to consider evidence and reach a verdict. In a statement on the Woodsville Cast Plane project, more commonly known as the WKPP, it is with heavy hearts we learn that Bill Gavin, a founding member of the WKPP and its second project director, has passed away. Bill was cave certified in 1979. He was active in the Woodsville Karst Plain area, exploring caves such as upstream Sullivan Sink, discovering the big rooms along with Bill Main in the early 1980s. He and Main made the connection between Sullivan Sink and Cheryl Sink in 1988. Bill was a world-class innovator, working with others diligently to help perfect the Hogarthian gear configuration, utilized Techna scooters with a tow leash for exploration, implementing gas blending standards for the WKPP's use of Trimix, and devised early decompression tables that the team would use throughout the late 1980s. Bill was a pioneer in deep underwater cave exploration. He was well respected in the diving community, and he implemented many of the early standards that the WKPP still utilize to this day. Thank you for your contributions to our diving longevity. Our hearts go out to his family and friends. And finally, in some nicer news, Florida-based International Training, or IT, has decided to tidy up its diver training branding by putting its various agencies under a single umbrella, that of SDI, or Scuba Diving International. You may have seen out there, you get training agencies like PADI, SSI, and all that kind of stuff, but there's a group which is, so you've got SDI, you've got TDI, you've got ERDI, or I call ERDI, you've also got PFI, or FI, that I call it, and there wasn't a strong link between them, even though they are all part of the same diving family. So International Training has tried to merge them all into or is decided to basically rebrand them. What it terms its One Dive family. So it is looking to combine the Technical Diving International, or TDI, Emergency Response Diving International, ERDI, and PFI, the Performance Freediving International, all together under the SDI umbrella. In a quote from the CEO, Brian Carney, since 1994, TDI has set the standard for safety and innovation in technical diving. The legacy of TDI is the foundation upon which SDI and our One Dive family are built, ensuring that all divers receive the same high-quality training and support that has defined us for decades. Unifying the brands under SDI, quote, allows us to better communicate our shared values and provide a streamlined, cohesive experience for divers worldwide. So expect to see a bit of unification and a change in some of the branding and advertising. So because it wasn't always immediately obvious that TDI was the technical side of SDI, and it was linked with ERDI and FI. It's kind of like PADI's technical side of things having a different name. Instead of PADI, it's TADDY or whatever it is. So it would just bringing it all under one brand just makes it a lot more streamlined to help divers basically find their technical branch. As far as new dive equipment, I actually missed one yesterday. Last week. I forgot to mention that Santi had announced a new upgraded undersuit, their BZ420X. So upgraded version of their BZ400X that I dive, and they say the latest evolution of our best-selling BZ400X undersuit, now even warmer and more advanced. This new version is designed to offer even better insulation for the coldest diving conditions. So they're using a 420 gram per meter squared material on some section, I imagine over the chests and maybe your thighs, and then it gets thinner for your limbs and where it needs to articulate. It's got reinforced shoulders, from what I can tell, which is sort of interesting. If you look over the different, I can't remember what you call it, the pattern that stops the material, the stitching throughout the material that stops it from shifting around. It's an unusual brick formation is cool, and I'm sure it does a great job. If you look past that, it's quite similar in design to the BZ400X. You've got those stretchy armpits, you've got the vents and the integration for heated. You've got the little like perforation that you can poke the wires through, pockets and everything. There's both a men's and a women's version out there, obviously. Santi has always been very good for, they call it ladies first designs. So if you're in a new market, or if you fancy a BZ400, I don't know if they're discontinuing it. Let's have a look, see if it's still on the website. So they got the can. So the 400 is still on the website. I don't know whether they're going to discontinue it and then once it's sold out. But don't be surprised to see some of them on discount and being replaced by the BZ420X, because they kind of fill the very same demographic. So they're kind of duplicate products, except the BZ420X is just that little bit better. Price-wise, does it actually say? No, it doesn't actually mention a price. But I imagine it's a little more than the standard BZ400. And I don't know if there's going to be a heated version. You might find they just continue with their Flex 2.0, which is very similar to the BZ400. But yeah, watch this space. But yeah, there's a new dry suit undersuit. If you're feeling a little chilly now that the water's turning a bit colder, that was about it as far as new dive equipment. I don't remember seeing anything else. I myself have been playing with the next gen version of the Nautilus Lifeline, which is like an emergency radio beacon. If something should happen, you can deploy this on the surface. Don't do it underwater. It just sends out a radio distress beacon to any ships in the area with the relevant radios. As far as design-wise goes, it's much the same. It has had a few upgrades in it. I think they actually have a trade-in program running. So if you do have an older one, I think you can trade it in and you can get the upgraded one at a discounted rate. I think they basically said it doesn't matter what state it's in. So if you've had one that's like flooded and knackered and it's just been sitting in a drawer, they'll take it. They said even if it's been used as a chew toy from your dog or whatever, then you can trade it in. So yeah, that's quite a nice offer, and you get you get a replacement at a discounted rate. That video is going live on the tour Saturday. So stay tuned for that. So let's jump into some Ask Mark questions. JMB5441 says, as a new diver, should I dive with a backplate or a regular BCD? It's up to you, really. I am an advocate for backplate systems because they're very customizable. And if you do it right, they can actually work out a lot cheaper, especially in the long run. I started off with recreational BCDs because that's all I really knew, and even as an instructor, I was teaching and diving a recreational BCD, and then as soon as I got a proper backplate and harness system, it just something clicks, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm never going back. I'm quite happy diving a recreational BCD, but I'll always prefer a backplate and harness just because you can customize it so much more to your specific requirements, and should something happen, then you just replace that component. You don't have to replace the entire BCD. So I'd recommend looking at backplates because the diving isn't any different. The main difference is going to be changing from a jacket style to a wing. But you'll get that same problem going from a recreational jacket to a recreational wing. It is just a slightly different buoyancy configuration. But yeah, I would recommend looking at backplates. Loading Cross says, could you tell me which one will be for you, with your experience, the best investment route in scuba diving? Keeping an eye on gear and also training. I'm about to take my advanced course after 20 dives. I'd like to know if it would be nice having any piece of gear before. Thanks for the videos. At advanced, you should definitely have your own mask and probably fins, maybe exposure protection and a dive computer. I think I did a video on like which order you should buy stuff, or at least what order people buy stuff, unless there's something specific that you're like aiming for, like rebreather, side mounts, or like whatever it is, like search and recovery, whatever, like speciality. Unless there's something like that, I'd focus more on equipment and experience. So yeah, just get in the water and go diving in as many like different environments. So diving from a boat, diving from a shore, diving in freshwater, diving in moving water, those kind of things. Just experience that, and try not to do it all at once, because then it becomes task loading. But yeah, I'd focus more on like getting good quality equipment than like just trying to collect as many specialities as possible. If there's some that are like specifically required, like dry suits, then yeah, do that. But don't worry about all your fish IDs and like boat diver and all that kind of stuff. Peak performance, buoyancy. Just spend time in the water and just like go diving and get those kind of experiences. But yeah, I'd lean more towards like investing in good equipment than signing up for every course under the sun. Jesus Angel Quintero, 8534. How do you recommend having some fresh water and some kind of a snack just for a couple of days lost? Oh, if you're lost at sea, should you bring food and water with you? You can do. I know divers, if they're expecting a long time in the water, they'll bring like a Capri Sun drink, because it's uncompressible. So it just fits in any space and quite neatly. And yeah, it has a lot of sugar and whatnot inside of it. As far as food, no, unless you bring like one of those canisters down with you that you can have like an energy bar or something inside of it, you could do. I mean, if you put it somewhere where it's not going to be like bent out of shape, in like a flat pocket, you could just have it in its pretty basic packaging because they're airtight. But yeah, I don't think too much about it. Fresh water is a good idea. Yeah, if you can get a flexible pouch of fresh water and stow that in a pocket, then yeah, I've got no aversion to that. But yeah, something like a Capri Sun, I know they're pretty popular, and you can actually drink them underwater with enough practice. But yeah, just think about air pockets and like compressibility, as well as bending and where you're going to put it. Pyro Tab says, I'm new to diving a twin. I've done some training and all is going well. My question is, now I have more weight with my twin 10 litres and the ability to fix weight between the cylinders, but I'm interested in droppable weight. How much is advised? There's so many variables. That's just something that you have to work. I mean, if you're doing training, your instructor will be best to talk you through that. I have some pockets on my harness and on my dry suit. Don't put any in your dry suit. At the moment, I have 1 kilo in each. So in a 30-second window, I could drop 4 kilograms. Is that enough? A 30-second window is an eternity in an emergency situation. So don't think about that. So yeah, I have some pockets in my harness. So yeah, that's where your integrated weights are gonna go. Personally, I have probably about half of my lead in the in a V weight between my twin cylinders. That, along with my stainless steel backplates, adds probably about half of my lead. The rest just goes on a traditional weight belt. I'd never put any lead in a storage pocket on dry suits or a BCD. It should really go in like dedicated either trim weight pockets or integrated weight pockets that you can ditch. So yeah, depending on your BCD, backplates, you can definitely add integrated weight pockets, or yeah, just a traditional weight belt. You can get like weight harnesses if you're a bit more, how do you say, rotund. And that way it puts the weights on your shoulder instead of just around your waist. The lead itself is still around your waist, but if you don't have hips and weight belts just slip down around your waist, then yeah, you've got the like shoulder straps to hold it up, and then you have quick release like straps. They'll have different mechanisms, but yeah, you can just grab the strap and the weight goes free. But yeah, I'd look at like dedicated integrated weight pockets. And never put anything in your dry suit, because 30 seconds to drop something, that's an eternity. So yeah, don't do that, and you'll probably end up damaging your dry suit. Sean Kelly, 1799. Are you still selling these Simply Scuba dive torches, or are they going by a different name? No, I don't work for Simply Scuba anymore. Simply Scuba was bought by, the company that owned Simply Scuba was bought by another company. I forget their name now. I haven't thought about it in a while. But yeah, even since then, after like COVID, we stopped doing the Simply Scuba Mark 1, which is, funny enough, named after me. One of my projects was trying to come up with a name for this dive torch, and back then, like pre-COVID, we were planning like an entire range of them. So I was thinking about, we could be like old waterproof wetsuits. They had a range of wetsuits named after star constellations. I thought, that could be pretty cool. The Scuba Pro knives were named after different types of sharks. So you had the white tip, you had the mako. So I was like, maybe something along those lines. And just as a joke, I just thought, you know what, let's just call it the Mark 1. And actually my boss quite liked that. So I was like, okay. And we just ran with it, because we figured that, if we got a more powerful one, we could have the Mark 2 and a Mark 3 or whatever. So I was like, okay, fine. So I see it as my namesake torch. But no. We obviously don't make them anymore. They were made by a company called Exposure Marine. They used to do a lot of underwater torches, but they just kind of stopped. However, they do continue to make them, and you'll see a lot of similarities in the Apex torches. Because they're made by Exposure Marine, they're made in a collaboration. So the Simply Scuba Mark 1 was, I think Exposure Marine called it an Action 1 torch or something, and an Apex called it the Lunar Mini torch. Very similar specs. It may have been upgraded since the Simply Scuba Mark 1 torch, because it's been a few years now. But yeah, it's effectively the Apex Lunar Mini, which I think is still available. So technically, yes. Technically, it is going by a different name, but I don't sell equipment anymore. I have nothing to do with Simply Scuba. Wouter van Rentergem 570. Which foldable knife at this time code do you use? So that's my foldable dive knife. That is a Mares 4 Spat. I think they named it titanium dive knife. It's a folding titanium knife, and very convenient. I don't think they make it anymore. I don't think I've seen it for a while advertised. I don't think it was particularly popular, but it does tick a lot of boxes for me because it's a folding knife. It's got like a liner lock on the back, and it's titanium, so I don't have to worry about like washing it religiously between dives. So that just tends to sit in one of my thigh pockets, and is there just in case. It's a pointed tip. It does have some serrations, so it's okay for sawing through things. But yeah, it's just because it doesn't have a separate sheath. It just the handle is the sheath. It is just nice and relatively compact for its size, and it's titanium. But no, I don't think they make it anymore, and I don't think anyone else makes something similar. It is just one of those things that I've picked up over the years that is really convenient, but they just don't make anymore. And looking at the time code, I'm going to call it a day because I always try to aim for half an hour. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Links to everything, all the articles and things that I've been talking about are going to be down in the description underneath this video or podcast, depending on where you're listening, because I do make this into a video on YouTube. But if you listen to it as a conventional podcast, then obviously there's not a video. Remember to head over to our website as well. You can still go to scubadivingmag.com, but it's going to redirect you to divenet.com because just like SDI, we're trying to streamline things. Just remember to like, share, subscribe, do all that good social media stuff. Thank you for listening, everybody, and of course, safe diving.